welcome to episode 2. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about fiction versus nonfiction. With nonfiction, we have truthful events recorded truthfully, or as far as they can be. Unlike the news, which is supposed to be completely unbiased, sometimes nonfiction is biased by what the author is saying, but it's still supposed to be based on reality. The things that happen in those stories are actually supposed to have happened. Now, with fiction, you're supposed to suspend your disbelief about the things happening. So you have science fiction, which is far in the future. Some of the devices that they're using are completely inconceivable, especially at this point in time. But they're still in a world that is realistic, but it's just set so far in the future that nothing that we have resembles that. When it comes to fantasy in the fiction world, these things are like magic, where it doesn't make sense at all into the realm of physics that we have right now. Both of them are supposed to be not truthful stories, but the thing about fiction is they are truthful in a way. Now, the events that happen inside those books never actually happen, but in the mind of the author, they're still writing the people in the books, honestly. At least in good fiction. In bad fiction, they would write very two-dimensional characters that don't have full developed personalities, and you would get very bored very quickly, or at least I would. When it's a good author, they're actually telling you honestly, truthfully, what they feel about people who act in those ways. The villain in the story, if it's a good author, is never evil in their own eyes. They're doing what they think is right. Now, with a good author, you can delve very deep into that and discover what it is inside their own mind that would make them act in those kinds of ways. That's why when I read fiction, mostly science fiction, I look at the people very closely that the author is writing. You can then get some psychology behind what the author thinks about the world. So, in my case, I like to do this because I want to see how other people perceive other people. And I think it's a good tool to try to understand society. Now, authors are a completely different set of people than your general run-of-the-mill normal individual, but the way they perceive the individual then helps you perceive more people in the world. Now, with nonfiction, they're trying to be completely and utterly honest, so sometimes you lose that flavor of the author trying to tell you about an individual, especially in biographies or autobiographies. Autobiographies where they write their own stories down, well, they perceive themselves in a certain way that someone else might not. And it helps a lot to have a third party in there viewing in and trying to explain their actions, because then you can perceive more deeply instead of just writing something down. I walked to the store. You know, I went to the store that day because is more important than I went to the store. Autobiographies, I'm not a big fan. Kobayashi, on the other hand, reads a lot of autobiographies and biographies. I don't. I think I get more honesty and more truth out of fiction because they don't try to hide anything. They're trying to convey something to you, obviously, but they're not trying to hide anything. Now, there's one little thing I wanted to bring up. This may be my last statement in this little thing. There's a guy named Sean Kennedy who keeps saying, oh, Heinlein, oh, I don't like his later stuff because he went a little crazy. Well, I'm sorry, sir. If you were actually a fan of Heinlein, you would know that he was crazy the whole time. His ideals in his later books, where it was involving multiple relationships and, you know, free love, basically, in a way, not actual free love, was in his very first novel. That didn't get published until after he died. All his ideas were already in this book. It's called For Us the Living. If you really want to know a little bit about Heinlein, I would go out and read this. It is not the best book in the world, but it still has all his original ideas that are scattered throughout his entire collection of books. You know, the thing that you call crazy, he was, you know, hiding beneath the children's stories that he was writing back in the day. When he got more editorial control, he was able to write a true story that he actually wanted to. Those things before that, that's not real Heinlein. Those are things he just made for money. His true and utter beliefs were actually in his later works. If you like Heinlein, if you want to think good of Heinlein, you have to go with the crazy that you think, because that is what Heinlein is. And that's why my son's name was Heinlein. I appreciate Heinlein very much. So, this was episode 2. I know it's a bit short. Just wanted to talk a little bit about science fiction and fiction and how they relate to reality. Well, signing off. I'll see you later.